Hello, YouTube modeling community. This is Rusty Rotor. As promised, we were going to, dive into the Ring Brothers charger. If you remember, this project's probably been going on for, I would say close to 3 years, maybe. Percentage-wise, is it close? It's not as close as I thought it was. Any build that I put off, it constantly runs through my mind, and you're always thinking, okay, well, if I do this and do that, and I can do this, and it's just not reality. It's just working it out in your head, and actual fact is when you go to do it 8 times out of 10 it doesn't work. But we have sourced from in-house everything we need, I believe, to finish this. There is a couple things. So first, all the decals on this build were made by STS Decals. Big shout out to Terry and his lovely wife. They do great work. I'm fortunate enough that I live very close to him. 20 minutes away, if that. So if there's certain things, I can just take what I have and take it to them. They can measure it and figure it out, and they'll produce what I need. And, same if you live close to him, you could do it as well. Usually, if not, you got to do all the measuring yourself and have plenty of pictures, and for custom work, that is. So I was doing some more research. I've got some pictures here I'll show you in a second. But I had a lot more printed off, but I can't find them. I don't know if they just got thrown to the wayside or what it may be, but I do have them in my phone, so that's all my reference. The Charger is a 1969 Dodge Charger. I think that was their base model that they used as well, because the front end matches, the rear end matches, the body lines and all that match. Ring Brothers is a custom builder. If you don't know, I urge you to look them up. They're on Instagram. I don't know any other platforms they're on. They may be on Facebook. I don't know. But I always scroll Instagram because a lot of people just post all their stuff there, and I find all these custom builders that way. And then I go and I look at the cars and see if anything catches my eye, and if so, then I start diving in deeper and finding more and more pics, all different angles if I can, underneath the hood, underneath the car, the interior, etc. A big company like Ring Brothers, they don't give two craps, about little old Rusty Rotor. So, it's not like contacting them. And normally, out of all the research you'll do and pictures you'll find, you're not going to find every angle to be 100% able to replicate it to the T. And that's our case on this one. And I'm sure it will be when we get to the Javelin. We'll run into the same issues. But what really attracted me to this car was, one, the color kind of stands out to me. I would call it the banana something, but it's just cool. It's that yellow and black, and the stance, and I would call it a cross of Pro Touring and Resto Mod-ish show rod. I mean, it's got full custom interior. It does have a custom suspension on it, but I don't know what's in the front, so I can't replicate that. I've got very limited, and when I say very limited, it's one picture of somewhat of the rear suspension. And then you kind of got to use your imagination to fill in the blanks and the gaps and all that. And that's what we've done. So anytime I do a build of this nature, and this was a big build, and if you remember back when we started this, I probably had 2 or 3 of these things going at once. That burns you out. You get aggravated, frustrated, whatever, and it burns you out, and you put it away. And I've done that a couple times on this. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, this is the year that we get all the started projects done. Let's get this out, and let's get it done. And we are. It's just needed a lot more than I thought. So I've been working on this for since Saturday, right after I released the last video. We got going back in, got everything out, kind of looked at what we had, went through the pictures. What do I need? What am I missing? Type thing. So I got some scratch building materials out. We started looking at things, and I realized the first problem I ran into was at the time. Now that's changed. The steering wheel. There wasn't anything in a model kit that I could recall that was remotely close enough to, play the part, I guess. So then a little bit after that, after I put it away the first time, I found a file on Colts that had a steering wheel that was very, very similar. And I was like, okay, well, that I could probably make and make it work, play the part. So this is what the original steering wheel looks like. So you can see it's flat across the bottom, and then it's kind of two-dimensional here, and then it's got that yellow band. And I'm just looking at glancing, and it just looked black to me. I was like, okay, well, I can just paint that black. I can get a yellow stripe on there, no problem. Oh, this is a little more tricky, so what am I going to do with that? Well, then I found the file. I was like, okay, I can build off of that and make this. My problem was at the time my printer was screwing up so bad that it wouldn't completely print these. This would print flat. This would be all done and nice, no problem. So after about, 3 or 4 prints, I got aggravated, said I'm done with it. I'll figure something out later. Well, I did. I took the kit steering wheel, and I chopped it in half. I chopped the printed one out in half, and I fabricated them together. Came out good. I used a toothpick and super glue, and I filled in all the way around it and then sanded it all down to get smooth, so I don't have any little gaps or cracks looking things in there. And then if you look at the front of it, it's going to be hard because this is a very small piece. You can see those ridges. And then I just took flat styrene and cut little tiny pieces, and we drop it, of course, because it's fiddly and I don't want to break it. I'm very shaky today. We filled in the back, and then we sanded all that down, and we kept adding the glue and sanding. And this took about an hour, and we got it to where it's all kind of molded. I'm sure once I prime it, I might find a couple little tiny little specks here and there, and I can deal with those when I get to it. But now I can, detail paint it, and it'll look the part. We even put a little groove. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'll get it. A little bit of an angle. You can kind of see there at the top. It looks like a notch is out of it. That's the groove all the way around, and that's so I can lay yellow paint down in there to replicate that stripe. I could have just, painted a stripe around it, masked it off, and painted it. No big deal. Then I realized I was looking at the pictures on my phone, and the steering wheel is carbon fibered. Yay me. As you know, I never boast that I'm an expert at decals. I absolutely suck. If you put me on a level of professionalism, I'm below beginner on decals. Unless they're really little teeny tiny decals. That's why you see me only placing like an oil filter or something underneath the hood. Dashboard stuff is okay, but big decals and me just don't get along. So I try to avoid them. And 9 times out of 10, the decals are crap anyways. And Terry's are always really good. The decal lady, only on Instagram, her decals are really good. So that made my life a lot easier then. But she got so big and so busy, I couldn't get through to her to get anything made without being on a 3-month waiting list. And that just doesn't work. Terry, he can pump them out pretty quick, but again, he's very popular, very in high demand, and I have to wait a while, so that's okay. So we're going to attempt this ourselves, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a circle just a little bit bigger than what the steering wheel is, and then cut it, and then we're just going to put it on there. We're going to use a lot of setting solution, and my heat gun and just work it around to where we can cover that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to clear coat it. Of course, this will have to get painted gloss black first. Then we'll clear coat it after the decals dry. And then we'll come back and we'll mask it off to paint the yellow stripes so I don't get it all over the steering wheel. And then we'll hand paint all the trim. And there's two colors, just like a matte black and silver. Yeah, so a little detail painting in that. And that won't be really hard. That kind of stuff is what I really thrive on and enjoy. Other than that, that falls, well, it's more scratch built. Well, I can't say it's scratch built. I mean, it's a 3D printed steering wheel. 3D printed, kit, and scratch building. All in this tiny little piece right here. And an hour, a little over an hour's worth of work. And I get something that replicates, what we're trying to do. So the premises for this build, like I said, I had very limited pictures, but enough to kind of, replicate it to a degree. The second thing that really caught my eye, other than the tires and wheels and the stance of the car and color and all that, was the minimalistic approach to this car underneath the hood. Most Pro Touring cars or even resto mods, there's a lot of stuff underneath the hood. Still kind of resembles old school hot rod, but meets new school hot rod type thing. This underneath the hood is very minimal. As you can see, I've got two reservoirs. Both of them look like they hold antifreeze, so I don't know anything about the mechanics of the car, but that's what they look like to me. Now, one could be washer fluid, I guess, and one could be antifreeze. I just don't know. But what we're going to do is, I have 3D printed reservoirs that look just like these, which I got super lucky with. And we're going to paint them white, and then we're going to come back and we're going to use a fluorescent green paint. And then we're going to clear coat them to make it like blend all together. And then paint the caps black. We've drilled everything where we need to for hoses and tubes. The Hemi, the whole time I thought this engine was all like a matte black. It's not. That's like a gunmetal, and that's what we went with. There's a gunmetal on top, the block and the heads. The oil pan and transmission, of course, are like an aluminum color. So we did that, and I'll show it to you. This right here, I thought maybe it was an oil tube. This is the power steering. I'm assuming it's power steering. It's on the driver's side. The power steering goes on the driver's side on this engine. So, yeah. So we started shopping, I don't fool with hood hinges, that. So I started looking at other details. Well, okay, the fender wells are all smooth, so I'm going to have to do that. We got this bolt detail. Well, I can do that. Firewall is really smooth and kind of accommodates the Hemi in there. And then all this up here, and this custom piece right here, all this down in here, and these little areas right here on both sides. So, okay, this is going to turn into a scratch building nightmare. And it has, to a degree. But I like that because, when you're scratch building and you're building something this small, it doesn't really have to be perfect, I guess. Not to me. If I can get it so close that it plays the part, I'm extremely happy. And we did. The engine, what do we do? Oh, here it is. So I'll show you where we're at with the engine right now. We've got the transmission painted. The supercharger's painted. We got the throttle body painted. Oil pan. And this is ready to go get a matte clear on it so I don't scratch anything off of it and have to keep touching up the paint. The pulley drives, we did all in a satin black. There's two pulley sets. We got to make a belt or two belts. I have to figure that out yet. So those are pretty much ready. I got to put these on and get them lined up, and that'll take care of that. And that's pretty much it for engine wise. The only other thing we're going to have to scratch build, if I can't find a file for it, for the air box and the air inlet tube, we may have to scratch build this somehow, or replicate it as best we can. You do see a radiator hose here on the top, so, you know, of course, we'll get a radiator hose on it. And we'll just guesstimate for the lower radiator hose. That way, everything's kind of how it should be. These, I'm assuming, are the AC lines, because the car does have air conditioning. So we'll have to replicate this, which, no big deal. This goes down, you can tell it goes to the front to probably the condenser in front of the radiator. So we'll get that in and kind of dead run them in somewhere back here. And we got a master cylinder. Even on the real picture, it's not very clear what kind of master cylinder it is. So again, we have to use our creative juices and come up with something. So, you know, we got us a racing master cylinder booster. We do have it for the vacuum line. We can get that hooked up to the side of the engine somewhere. And then we got the actual master cylinder. This one's a Bear. So, not to be mistaken for a pain in the butt, it's just a Bear Racing master cylinder. That was designed by Ryan Jones, C-Force Model Works. And I believe they are on his Colts page, so you can go buy a file and 3D print a zillion of them like I've done. I need to print some more. I use them almost on every build. And that's just the way it goes. So, one picture, I do have a pretty good shot of the calipers. The calipers are silver, from what I can tell. So that's what we're going with, whether they are or not. And it's going to be hard for you to see in this picture, but if you look right there, there's the caliper, and it looks silver to me. So that's what we're going with. And, you know, this is what we've come up with. You know, these are all done, other than a little black wash on them. And then we'll put Bear decals on the caliper. So that comes when we get ready to do decals. And then we'll hit them with a matte clear. I don't really ever gloss any of my calipers and rotors. Maybe the caliper, not the rotor. So we'll hand paint those. And I showed you before. This is kind of what I use. I'll brush paint this, and I've airbrushed it. It's just, it works really good. It doesn't hurt anything, you know, so why not? Especially when you're using acrylics or enamels. That's a good clear coat to go to, especially if you found a color you really like and it's a flat enamel and you can't find it in gloss. Well, you can paint it and then use that, and it shines it up and makes it look like gloss, so you're good. Second was, I could go buy a bunch of photo etch nuts and bolt assembly type things, or really spend the money and go and get the actual, you know, aluminum nuts and bolt heads. And, you know, this isn't a high dollar build. I'm not going to do all that. So, you know, I found a file. There's our bolts for the fender wells. We've got them painted black. It's a semi-gloss black. And then, where's that picture at? Here it is. Remember, this was another thing that had to be scratch built, was the exhaust dumps. So we did scratch build all this and replicate it to the best of our abilities. You know, guys, I want to make something really clear. I could be, and I can do a lot better work than I do. But to me, spending hours and hours and hours of masking, I'm exaggerating, but, you know, all that extra time in masking and then airbrushing, I split that into two categories. For me, show and commission. That's a two-parter for one. Show and commission, I will spend the extra time, mask off, airbrush to get that cleaner, neater look. I really kind of get ahead of myself a lot. So if I would slow down a little bit more, I could definitely think ahead and save myself a lot of agony. You know, but with this, yes, I could have left these off, painted them separately, got that smooth, nice, perfect, look. Now I do have the rivets, that's what I just showed you. Those will go in each corner when I'm done, and I'll show you here in a second. But that looks so smooth and fluent onto the body line, and I wanted that. I didn't want bulkiness sticking out. And I did mask off when I painted these, but I hand painted them, and I did it for a reason. And I lightly sanded, and then I came back and touched up where I needed to, keeping my brush strokes going one direction. And I got a pretty good, now the rivets aren't on there yet, but I got a pretty good finish. Camera play hell trying to, there you go. So now once I add my little rivet detail, that definitely plays the part. Another mistake I made along the way was thinking, and I looked at different angles, and there's no really clear-cut pictures. But one picture kind of looked both ways, and I'm like, well, they would definitely wouldn't have done that. That would have been stupid. I thought all the trim was chrome. It's not. It's black. It's just the way the light reflected on it. It made it look like chrome, but it's not. It's I don't even think it's that black chrome. It's just a matte, or semi-gloss finish on it. And now that I've gone through all my pictures, it's verified that it is. So now I'm going to have to carefully mask off everything. It take a lot of time. Crap I don't like to do. And then repaint this black. This has to go into another couple coats of clear coat anyway, so I'm not worried about that. I got a little wet sanding to do on the roof, a little bit back here on the trunk deck, but not bad. This paint really laid really smooth. Clear coat went down really smooth, which really helps your finish touches that you have to do. So that's a little redo there. And decals that need to be made. There's little red Hemi emblems that go on both sides of the fenders. Terry has not made those yet. I thought he did, but we've not. So I gotta take a few parts with me, go back, and I gotta have him make a chrome charger emblem for the grill decal, and the two Hemi emblems, and then the dash detail, which we're going to look at here in just a second. So, and the only thing I wasn't happy with is, and I should have, and he gave them to me and I didn't do it, and we might do it now before we put the next coat of clear coat on, is overlay another decal over this, because it's kind of a little transparent, you can see through it. So we may go ahead and get another decal laid on there and make that a lot darker. We're going to play with it and see. At least this is protected, so I can always get the new decal off of it if it just is crap. But I think we can get that to work out pretty good. And I got some sanding to do right here. I can feel where that decal wrinkled on me a little bit. I can feel that, so I'm going to get in there and sand that down. And I'll do my wet sanding here too as well. And then clean it off, and then we'll try to overlay a decal on this and see what we end up with. But that's not a big deal. So then we go back into the scratch building. The real car has a chin spoiler on it. Well, they don't make them. I've not seen them in any kits or aftermarket, so we had to scratch build this spoiler. This spoiler is, I don't know if you can see it in the picture. Yeah, you can. You can see how it comes down and then it steps down again and comes across. We had to heat, bend, sand, the whole 9 yards to replicate how the real one is. And I amazed myself doing this. It worked out beautifully. First try, no issues. I do have I got to put a little putty in underneath here and then sand this back down smooth just to get it all the way smooth from where I was gouging and sanding on it. I've got some marks in there. I want to take care of that. And then we'll have to mask off, and then we'll do a matte black. I'm thinking, I can't really tell from the pictures, that may be carbon fiber as well. We might try. I don't know. But either way, we got to get it painted black, and then maybe we'll hit it with some clear coat. and then we'll come back and try the decal. Like I said, I'm just not real good, especially in custom fitting this. And I think I may just end up doing it like a semi-gloss black, matte black, whatever you want to call it. So we'll see when that time comes for that. I've kind of avoiding it like the plague. But into the scratch building, we had to do a lot of modification and sanding and to get this chin spoiler to line up just right and to fit the body tight, so there was no gaps. And I think I did pretty good. I mean, there's a little in between the bottom of the valance and the chin spoiler. You can see that gap back there, but it doesn't go all the way through. It ends where the two meet. And that took clamping, gluing, getting in there with, I'll show you. If you guys don't have this tool, definitely look into it. It's a little, this came via Jimmy Ledford with some trading we did, and it's got some extra sandpaper ribbons. These little things work great, especially when you're, getting in there and trying to sand. That did really good. And if you cut something out to get in there and, get at it, these work great. And there's different grits you can get for this. Very handy tool to have. I don't use it all the time, but it comes in clutch when I need it to. So, anytime you're going to build a replica, guys, just take screenshots if it's online, and then take your pictures, and then if you got a really good printer, print them out. You create a file for that build, and you have all your reference to go to for key pieces, key points of view that is detail, that is important, that you try to replicate. And that was one of them. The other one was, this is all I had to go by for the dash. This dash is, out of 100%, this dash is 98, maybe 99. Yeah, let's call it 99. 99% scratch built. And you say 99%, well, it's because the only piece that I'm using is the upper half of the dash and the side pieces. Every bit of that dash I had to cut out, the factory dash. Everything else you can see the small layers. It's all sanded and smoothed in. All the little pieces, the little knobs. These I'll be using push pins. I dropped the other one out apparently, but I got plenty of them, so it's no big deal. But it gets 2 little push pins in, and I'll set them for how far they set out and glue them in place. Cut off the excess back here and put a little dab of glue behind the dash. They'll never come out again. This, I think that is the stereo. Is that? Yeah, this is the stereo. And then there's like 4 buttons underneath. Those are all little, you can see them. All these are little tiny pieces I whittled, carved, sanded, and then glued in place. Side pieces. There's that's 2 layers right here where my finger's pointing. 2 layers here. So I have to take this to Terry and take the picture and show them so they can make the decals that fit in here and for the stereo. And then I'm going to cut a little piece of clear acetate to go over top of it and drill a hole in it so it fits right over top of the face of the stereo. Now it's hard to see, but you'll see here in a minute. Now if you look down here, you'll see this little bump out right here. And that's because there's a decal that goes on there. And that says captive. Another key point, because this is visible through both door windows and the back window looking in at the dash. So we wanted that to be there. Now came the part of trying to make this. And I was like, well, maybe I can cut little wires and super glue. And yeah, I tried that for about 4 hours and I threw everything across the room. My patience isn't as much as y'all think it is. So the next was to go to the smallest strip styrene I could find. And at this point, let's make it look the part. So we did. And that's our grill right there. And it's chromed. This will go over top of the decal, which will play this part. The decal we have right there. It says captive. We've got one decal that goes on the grill right here, and then this one goes, I can't remember, it goes somewhere on the car. So we have those decals. And then this says Charger. But this is in black. I think it is. Let me put my new specs on. Or no. Those are silver. So no, I don't have to have that made. So we're good. We have for the grill, we have the Charger emblem and the Ring Brothers emblem that goes in the grill, which you can vaguely see right there. So we're golden. And next is the grill is all detail painting. There was some thinning out of the front bumper because the bumpers are shaved and fit back into the body on this car. So we couldn't just throw the wonky stock bumpers on there and achieve that. So the grill has all been reworked. You can see right here it's been reworked. This is actually needs a little more sanding right here. I can feel it. So we got to get that smoothed out. And then our bumper's been shaved and cut back to fit back into the body. Like so. You can see there on the sides. Fits back into the body like it's supposed to. So that's got to be re-chromed. And then the little gills on each side of the centerpiece, those get a little black in there. And we'll probably end up using black wash because it is so tiny that trying to paint those by hand would be a nightmare. But, you know, no problem. And then our marker lights, they'll get chromed, and then we'll put some clear Tamiya orange in there. And that'll take care of those. That'll look spot on. And I think by looking at some of these pictures, that looks like almost like an aluminum finish, chrome face, and then aluminum finish inside. And if that's the case, I'm going to reference that to some other Chargers. And if that is the case, then that's what we'll do. Because I can very easily just face paint the chrome trim around here, down the center, and then everything else be aluminum finish. And then we'll chrome the bumper. Because we have inserts that go in the grill. The kit does come with those, so that saved me a lot of headache. And they do replicate it to a T, and we've already chromed around them. So we'll have that chrome trim on the inside. No problems. We also got our valve covers painted and detailed. It says Hemi supercharged, just like on the real car or on this car. So those are done. Calipers and rotors are done except for decals. Tires and wheels, these were custom made by Ryan Jones for this build. You can see they're beautiful. They're not glued together yet, so we will get to that. So, you know, now you've seen the engine, you've seen the calipers and rotors, you've seen the grill, front bumper assembly, what we had to do to the front of the car. Now we move on to the back of the car, which was a whole nother nightmare. Let's put this to the side. And reference picture, here we go. Now you can see this is like around the bezels. And these are LED now, of course, but we can't do that. But, well, I mean, I could light it up, but I'm not going to. We got to do that trim around the headlight or tail lights. The tail lights are somewhere around here, but we'll check and see if it's got that lip there, or no, we already did it. It's around the bezel itself. And we got a Ring Brothers decal here. So yeah, I mean, I took a lot of hand painting, a lot of sanding down, repainting, touching up, and then clear coating. But you know, we got it. This is where I'll use a varnish to tone this down, because this is not gloss. This is at best a matte finish through here. So I'll come back through with a Vallejo matte varnish, and we'll brush stroke it one direction and get a coat on there and see what it looks like. If we have to add another coat, we'll do it just to dull it down from being shiny. Now this whole rear section had to be reworked. Same way, bumpers tucked in, so we had to rework the bumper, rework this whole rear valance to accommodate the bumper, and the car has a rear diffuser, and we scratch built that. And I amazed myself with this, because you can see, if you look up close, all the different angles of this thing. You know, it's flat, concaves down, it concaves outward, and down, and up, and then the fins on the side And then this had to match the valance in the rear, because when this is in, this actually goes up flush with the back of the car, and you can see it fits in there perfect. I can't remember how long it took me. It probably took me a day, 2 days to get this made. Constantly putting the car together, mocking it up. And then if you look off to the side, you can see that white part there sticking out. That is prevalent on the real car. That is a piece of detail, and it needs to be there. And this all gets painted matte black. As much work as this took to do, this saved me a lot of work. Not that I couldn't have done it, and may have only taken 15, 20 minutes. Who knows? But I want to show you. Now, I still got some work to do on this. And some of it got broke off, so now I got to redo stuff. Which is, that happens when you throw stuff in a box and put it away for a while. But we had to custom make the 4-link. We've got our top trailing arms in already. Our differential, we left it like a semi-gloss black, which is cool. This will all be matte black. I don't know on the real car what it is, so we're just doing that so the detail stands out. If you turn the car upside down, you can, differentiate the difference between parts on the car. We use photo etch brackets. They're going to be hard to see right here where my finger is here and over here. There's one on each side that accommodates the trailing arms for the 4-link. And then you can see one of our brackets on here. So we're going to have to glue our trailing arm back in here. No big deal. I got plenty of them. And then put a new one in over here. No problem. We got to retrofit our coilover brackets on. And then we have, these are, whatever it is, Productions coilovers. Now these would actually function if you cut that center shaft down a little less than what the actual size is. Then you could squeeze that and that coil would work. But you don't want to push on the back end of your model to you just break stuff. So we'll get those figured out. We kept the kit shock so we can cut where it's bigger here. We can cut that off and add that to the top to, if we need to. You never know until you start putting stuff together. We do have our bump up brackets all painted and ready to go on. Our actual bracket itself that holds the coil over is right there. Those will go on top of those. That'll give us our clearance we need for that to fit at the height. Show you real quick that these are. I've not cut the spring and not cut the center shaft, and I don't want to. I want to have enough meat, so to speak, to be able to see when the kit's done. So we got to work with this. So we can't go any deeper into here. So what we can do is build up off the differential to accommodate that height. And that's what we're going to do. You can see some daylight through here and you're like, what's that? Those are cutouts for our exhaust tips that we had to scratch build that dump out through those quarter panels. And that's what we did. We used solder. We actually soldered these together, super glued and soldered these together. And we were looking for a way to not have to try to make a sharp bend and come up and tie into the actual exhaust. Because once this diffuser's on here, if you look right here, that covers where those pipes dump out. You will never see them once this is installed. So we're not worried about it. Our exhaust will run up underneath there. It looked like it's a full exhaust. Just cheating a little bit. Nobody will ever know. Well, other than me telling you now, you'll know. So that, there's one for each side. That's what they look like. They stick out through. That was the tricky part. Let me see if I can get it to. There we go. Whoops. Just keeping them spread enough. It's going to be hard for you guys to see in there, but you can kind of see where the actual exhaust comes into there. Plays the part. We drilled those out and we blackwashed in there. I still got to file and smooth around the outer edges of both tubes on both sides. So we still have to do that. Our firewall is all smoothed out, final puttied, sanded smooth. We did this Sunday. So now this is ready to go to primer and then get painted. It gets painted yellow to match the interior of the engine compartment. And then we're going to jump back here real quick. Two things. One, we had to modify the crap out of the engine compartment to get this engine. This engine is a 124 scale. And the reason I did that instead of scaling it down is because on this car, the engine sticks through the hood. So we know we had to modify two ways. We had to modify the hood because if you remember, I used the same exact engine on Project Slimer, which is the lime green Charger. And I couldn't get the engine down in there far enough to get the hood to close. And I finally did, but it was a nightmare. In the same way with that kit, we put it off for quite a while before we finished it. This one, it worked in our favor. Because now, the way it sits, and boy, this took a lot of work. I still have some work to do underneath, but not much. To get that to fit on there, to where, this is going to be hard to show you, but there, you get the gist of it. That's how it is on the real car. Oh, it sticks up through there like that. It does line up. It's just holding that. There you go. You can kind of see. So that we actually pull off really good. Now we have room to run our radiator hose that we see in the picture, our air conditioning lines. It doesn't really show a battery, so I'm going to opt out on trying to put that detail in there. We're going to put an electric fan up in the front just to play the part. We can't ever see what it has. I'm assuming that's what it has, because I'm sure they used all the controls, which you'll see here in a minute, out of the real car or the newer Charger to put into the old Charger. So I'm sure it's running an electric fan for the engine, so forth. And I'm assuming maybe the battery is in the trunk on this car just to keep the engine compartment clean, which makes perfect sense. The coil packs that go on this engine, you don't even see them in that picture. So we're opting out of the coil packs. They're just not needed. So we'll put our covers on like they're supposed to be. We've got our, coming up from the power steering pump, it's so small it's hard to see. That's your fill tube for the power steering pump. We still got to get that painted white and black. And then, actually, this goes down inside a little piece of styrene tube, so we may just leave it white and not have to worry about painting it. But I do have hollow styrene tube that this will fit down in. And we'll make that fill tube down to the power steering pump, which is right here. You can kind of see it, how it blocks out. And when it's on there, like this, right there, that's where the tube goes to fill it and check it. So it's going to be needed. It's part of the look. So, after scratch building all this, and we didn't get this perfect, but we play the part. We got our hood latch all scratch built, and all those are little individual pieces where you see my thumb right here to replicate from what I could see in the pictures and underneath. Now we do have a little piece of the sprue that comes from photo etch. We made a little hook, and I got to polish it up still, and that goes down in there as like if it's latching the hood shut. So you'll see that detail. And then this goes in place to the front of this. This has got to get painted black, and it fits perfect. It's going to be hard to show you on camera, but until we actually get it on there, that fits in there. I may have to put a little filler piece across the front edge of this to close in between it and the grill. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've had it all together, but we'll double check that before I call it all good. And yeah, it's looking at it in person, you can really see that detail in there. And it's, I not toot my own horn, but I amaze myself every time I do this at such a small size. And any of you that's done any scratch building, you know, and especially at this scale or smaller, if you can pull it off, it's really a great feeling. And I urge you, even just fooling around, trying stuff, and you're just working with plastic. You want to use a glue that's going to melt it, either this or that other stuff that comes in a glass bottle. I can't remember what it's called now. I've got the bottle around here somewhere. But, keep coating this on there. Then you come back in, sand it. You got to get in there with little pieces of sandpaper somehow. And I rig stuff up on a toothpick. And I get in there and I just turn on some music and start sanding until I can get it as smooth as possible. And the outcome of it is phenomenal. It looks great. So, a lot of scratch building just in the front end, and then getting these firewall or inner fender wells smooth. You can see they're smooth. You see the shine on them. This presented a problem. How do I paint all this and mask it off and then have to remask? No, I don't want to do that. This is the part where we're going to get into real quick. This is all brush painted. Now I'm going to turn it at an angle. You can't see paint strokes in it, because if you use that method, like I've always told you, front to back, you can go left to right all you want to get into the little nooks and crannies, and then come back while it's still a little wet and brush stroke it out one direction. You will end up with nil to none brush strokes. And then I will matte spray this to protect it. I still got, and this was done this got clear coated when I clear coated the fender wells. So it'll show through where it's shiny. That's where I need to put more matte black paint, or flat black. And then it'll be matte when I put the matte clear coat over it. So I've got some shiny areas. I'll touch those all up. And then this will all get painted matte. And then if I need to shine this back up, I can use my top coat, and it'll bring that gloss back, and we'll be just fine. But don't shy away from hand painting something just because. You can take your time, and believe it or not, these little Vallejo paints, they're so creamy, they smooth very nicely. That's why I like them. You can not wet sand, but you can dry sand these using 3000 or above. If you get any little heavy areas, you can smooth those out, and then matte spray it. I use Tamiya when I do these. It's got to be an acrylic type of clear coat, or a water-based clear coat too, so it doesn't eat your acrylic off. But yeah, I mean, and then you set it down, you move it around, it'll scuff the paint off. So that's why you want to clear coat it to protect it from doing that. There's two blacks that I use, and I mark them so I know what it is. This is a glossy black, which is basically a semi-gloss, and then you got flat black. It doesn't say flat; it's just black. These are like $3.50 or something like that a piece at Hobby Lobby. I've gone through probably 2 or 3 bottles of each of these. I use them for everything I do: interiors, touch up on the chassis, engine detail, whatever it may be. They're great. I urge you to go get them and start working with them and get the feel for them and see how they work, because they do. They work great, and as long as you clear coat them, it'll be protected. It won't, like a lacquer, it won't come off. Even lacquer, using lacquer, and if you're not clear coated them and you move them around, it'll scuff the paint off. You're not protected there. But again, you can see how that detail shows out through on the back of that quarter, and it goes up underneath. Now this is where we can see that trailing arm detail, but that's all we can see. And a little bit of muffler work. So we went with 3D printed mufflers. They're skinnies, so they'll tuck up underneath. They're nice. They'll go pretty much right in here where there's a divot in the suspension or the chassis, so they don't hang out from the bottom of the car a whole lot to where you can see them. And we got to custom bend our exhaust, so we'll use, these are just solder, and I'll polish these up, and then I'll hand bend them, which this will take some figuring because they run a lot right along the trans tunnel right here. So they'll come out of here, flare out, bend up to go up to the headers, and then mount to the headers, come down. We'll put our mufflers on, and that's where we'll cut them. Once we do all of our bending, I always leave them long, and then we'll finish out, because they'll come out and they'll come down and they'll run alongside the trans tunnel, up and underneath the diff. They'll come up 90 over and go up underneath that diffuser, and that's where they'll end. So we'll have our exhaust on there. So with that being said, we had to eliminate stuff along through here, sand it out, smooth it out, fill it in, sand it again, and we're able to do that. Our next trick was, I left this chassis straight, and if you notice, this one's curved up a lot. By bending this helped twofold. This helped be able to tuck this where it needed to be, lift it up so my exhaust came out where it needs to be, into that quarter panel, and it changed my ride height where I wanted it to be. And when it's mocked up, I can put it in here and show you real quick. Once the interior's in there, you can see it's raised up, and you're like, oh, well, that's way up in there. But when this goes on, it's not. It sits exactly where it needs to be. You can't tell the difference. It's everything works out perfect. Primarily, almost all of the gas tank is covered other than the front section. Just a little bit of it is just exposed there, as you can see. If you look down there, you can see just a little bit of it sticking out. And that's just how it's supposed to be. And then that sets our ride height for our rear tires. I like our rear tires, get it to come out of there. They're supposed to sit right like that lip to the fender well. And you can't see it, but it's almost perfect. I may have to tweak a little bit here and there, but we'll, get it. And that's why we heated the floor pan and the suspension. We heated it and we bent it and we cooled it down. We heated it and bent it back. We got it a little too far just to get it right where it takes for everything to fit in there, and it set my ride height. And this was done before this was the differential, or the rear diff was put in. And then we mocked that up, and it's like, oh, well, this lines up really, really close, so we're going to run with it. We'll tweak it as we need to, and lo and behold, tweaking it and everything else, we know that we're very close, or acceptable, let's put it that way. The front, you can see a lower hole. You may not be able to see it on the side. It's there, right there by my finger. There's a lower hole. That's kit level. And then we adjusted the front. We re-drilled a hole, and that's where the front goes. Now we will use pins from the scrap box, and those will just go and get cut off, and that'll hold the front tires and all that right in place. That sets it right to the front ride height. So yeah, we've got ride height adjusted. We've got our diff in. We've got our front top trailing arms on. We got to put our back ones on, get our coilovers in. We'll go ahead and get our exhaust tips. These won't go in yet until we get this in finally. Then those will go in, and then the diffuser will go on at last and cover everything up, and we'll be golden. That way, if we have to tweak these exhaust tips a little bit, bend them a little bit to be able to go up and into the quarter panel. So yeah, that's weeks worth of work, and I worked a little bit on it the past few days. So we're right at the stage where we do our final touch up, get this mat cleared, re-gloss if we need to, get our firewall painted. The firewall goes to the front of the interior tub, so we won't put that in yet. That won't get put in until this all goes together, and then we can marry our engine in, get our exhaust done, so on and so forth. Now, the hardest part of this build is the interior, because it is very visible through the windows. So we used the kit tub, which has worked out pretty good, and we've had to scratch build all the components, the kick panels, the door panels. I call them bolsters, but they're just pads that go on top of the seats here, for like underneath your thighs. The front seats they were 3D printed, and then we just carved them down, sanded them, and whittled them until we got the shape that we wanted to represent the real seats. We grooved them, sanded, so these are ready for the bolsters, or whatever you want to call them, to be put on there, and then we can get them primered and get them painted. These will get airbrushed. The interior, the side panels, not, however, because it all has to go in place before I prime, I guess I should say. And then we're going to have to hand paint, because it's two different colors. It's dark gray and light gray. All the upholstery, the seats, and from halfway up is dark gray. Everything from there down is light gray. So that will get a little piece of masking tape on it. I'll use a little stick and I'll make a mark at the height I want it to split the colors, and then I'll pencil that on there. We'll put a piece of tape on there, and then we will paint the bottom color first, remove the tape, matte varnish, protect it, let it dry, and then we'll mask the bottom line to keep our line clean, and then paint from there up. And the door panels, everything is scratch built. There's one of the door cards, the handle. There's a little chrome trim piece here that gets painted chrome. This is like a matte silver coming down. This is dark gray. This, I can't remember which is which. I have to look at the pictures. One of these is, or they're both, they're darker gray or lighter gray. I can't remember, but we're going to have to hand paint all that. There's just no way to mask it off and, you know, blah, blah, blah. No way. So we'll get that done. We mirrored these for the back quarters interior trim. Only this part here, this piece right here, a handle or armrest, and then this trim will run all the way out without this piece being in there. I don't see any pictures of it replicating this, and so if it does, oh well, too late. Too bad, so sad. Each one of these took about a day to make. I'm talking 7-8 hours to get, you know, 2 of them made. We started with a template. As you can see, I always keep them in case down the road something doesn't fit. I have to redo it. I have the original to go by. And you can see here's the quarter panel, the panel that goes on the quarter panel on the inside. And I've already penciled in. You can see that line right there. That's that trim, that little thin thing that'll get chromed. And then we got to make this little piece right here to go bump it out, and then make our armrest right there. And then we'll have to sand it all down like we did those door panels. And then our center panels, which would be like your interior trim, you know, that comes in between your doors or from your front door to the quarter panel. We made those right here. I got to make the other side still. And those all get sanded down. Your seat belts would kind of run down from the bottom of this and run up to the ceiling and then come down over your shoulder. This does not have harnesses in it. So we will maybe, it would be too hard to do once the car is together. So we may just bring the seat belts up to the top of this and then kind of maybe glue a little bracket on there or something and have them come out of that and come down over the shoulder. I don't know. We may just do lap belts in it and call it good because there's no definite signs of how it's done. But yeah, that piece goes in between the 2 door cards and that'll get painted. I think it's split 2 in color, so it'll be light gray at the bottom, darker gray at the top. So we still got to make 1 more of those. We got to make the other door card. We have our template. See, I always write on it. Rear seat panel. Or what did I write? Rear seat template. Oops, I drop it. And when I'm done with this, I'll put these in a little Ziploc baggie and I'll write on the baggie, you know, what Ring Brothers Charger build. And I'll just put them in a drawer somewhere, and then I'll have them if I ever have to come back and visit this again for something, or if I want to replicate it. Our steering column is the kits. We just shaved the thing off. You can see how it bevels up. I got to go around there and bevel it some more and then sand it down smooth. Then this will get painted. The steering wheel goes on here. This goes to the dashboard, holds the steering wheel. The other thing about this body I didn't realize is it has 2 gas caps on it. I don't know why. No, it doesn't have 2 gas tanks in it. That would be crazy. But it does for looks. So I had to source another kit cap because I tried to scratch build it and it just wouldn't come out right. So we got one, and now we've got both. As a matter of fact, I think somebody sent it to me, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we've got 2 of those now. They've been black washed. And then when we're all done, those and the mirrors will be the last things that go on this. Now I've got to, because it's got a unique style mirror that goes on it. You can't really tell in this picture. Maybe you can get there close enough. They're custom. I'm going to have to go on Colts and look and see if I can find something that looks very similar to this that I can 3D print out and paint, which won't be a big deal. We can do that. But, you know, all these pictures are my reference as I'm building. And these will go in that same Ziploc baggie with the templates, and I have them for down the road. I have the pictures on file in my phone, so I will eventually print those out, along with all my pictures of building, and they'll go in a little photo album. And whichever one of my children that picks this, they'll have all the information to go along for the build. Kind of like a build sheet with proof of what I did. So, you know, and here's that, if you remember back that trailing arm sticking down, this fits that detail to a T, at least from the point of view I have. This is that bracket kit that I got from Future Attractions. That's it. And when you buy their 4-link setup, these are all the brackets you get to use for whatever build you need, or way you're building. It gives you options. And I keep those, and I use them for future builds, and that's what I did. So we have those. We have all of our rear suspension parts to finish up. We have our master cylinder. We got a scratch build the AC lines, no problem. We've got our electric fan, which is right here. That's already painted. That'll go in. You'll never be able to see it. Maybe slight angle, you'll see part of it. I don't know. Our little bolsters, as I was calling them, or pads. Those are it for the front seats. They go on there. It's going to be hard to show you. You'll get a slight glimpse. They go on right out here on the end. Come on. There we go. They go right out there on the end. It gives that detail. Now, if this car's doors were opening up, I would have to pay more attention to more detail, like the kick or the step guards. Those would be in there, but they're not. So it's one thing I don't have to worry about. A little bit more detail here and there, but the doors don't open, so you're not going to see it anyways. And the hood, I have to come back through here, and this is where Vallejo's work great. So where I got a little chip in there, I can hit that with just a little Vallejo paint and fill that in, and then put another coat of clear over this, and you'll never be able to tell that was touched up. Same way back here. See where it kind of went through? Terry's decals are kind of thin. They're not real thick, so you got to be very careful with them, but they lay really nice. And touch it up here, and then underneath the hood, I got to come back in here and kind of scrape that off. Then touch that up with yellow paint, and then I'll come in here and paint underneath the hood where it's supposed to be painted. Do a little filling here and there, and we'll touch up the paint after I get all that done. And then the last thing we'll do is put the flat black in there to replicate the hood insulation. Here's one of those little reservoir tanks. They had a divot in there, so I had to fill that in and get it smooth. I still got to sand this off, and then those will be ready as this one here. You can see how that looks like the other one. And it's drilled out for the line to come down. We're just going to guess and run the lines in somewhere. Top of the engine somewhere. So it looks the part, plays the part. We got a little black washing to do on the engine. This is getting ready to get hit with matte varnish. Then we'll do the matte wash, or the black wash. And then we can get our drive assembly in the front. We can get the belt on, and then we'll get our fill tube for the power steering on. We'll get our valve covers on there. And really, that's it, guys. That will take care of the engine and the engine compartment, other than adding the little details. So that's where we're at. This video is very long. We'll call it good here. Please let me know what you think down in there, and try some of this hand painting stuff. It's very challenging, but it's very rewarding. It takes a little time, but you know, at the end of the day, I think it's more rewarding than just masking everything off and airbrushing it. You can achieve the same techniques by hand as you can as an airbrush or rattle can. A little more time consuming, but to me it's more rewarding and worth it because you did it. It's not done by you know, nice and smooth airbrush or rattle can. Rattle cans can be kind of clumpy at times. Airbrushes definitely lays the paint a lot smoother. Hence, they paint real cars with big airbrushes. You know, it makes sense. But yeah, let me know what you think about all this. I'd say time frame we are, and oh yeah, the guitar we used from that little 32 coupe, we're gonna repaint this and detail paint it. We're gonna lay this up in the back seat, just as a little piece, maybe. I don't know yet. We'll see. But we're going to still paint it and get it ready. I'm going to attempt. I got to come through here and sand this down where the strings would be. As putting real string in there. That's why we drilled this out originally. If you remember, we got to bring them down over the pickups, and in the back here we'll have to drill essentially 6 little holes, which there's not enough room to really do that. So I think I drilled 2 big holes. Yes, I did. They're there. I got to re-drill them. But there's 2 big holes, and bigger than what these are, so we'll dump all of our wires into those 2 holes. And we are going to use an actual wire. I don't have it over here. It's behind me. But try to really add some detail to that guitar and put that in there. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm not sold on it yet, but we're going to try. But again, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please, it's free. I do a lot of this crazy stuff. Sometimes I do just simple builds. Go back and watch some of my older videos. You'll see I'm all over the place. But I do appreciate everybody that leaves comments. So please flood the comments. Let me know what you think about this. Do you know anything about Ring Brothers? You know, this example, I got little parts in here, so let me get these out of here real quick and I'll show you this. There is 38 pieces just in this console. Now, these are all things you'll see in a real charger, new age charger. I've got little controls that go back here. I've got the key that goes right here and a push button right behind it to start the car. It is a 5 or 6 speed, so I've got a little tiny space right here where that shifter's got to go in. I got to scratch make that. And then it's got a yellow ball with black stripes on it to match the way the car is. We got to get that in there yet. We won't do any of that until we get this all painted. But these all replicate what's on the real car. They're not 100%, but they're close. And then, of course, this all marries in back here to the back of the console. So once it's all painted, it'll all blend in. It is stepped up. You can see the raising of everything and the shapes and, you know, all that, and all the switches that go in there are all put in there. 38 pieces just for this, not including these side panels here. This is 38 pieces just for this center section down through here. And then I've got all the little components right here. There's the key, which you're not going to be able to see, but right there on my finger, that's the key. That was scratch made. There's 3 pieces just in that little key. 4 pieces, actually. There's the little knobs that go behind the ignition. The tops of those got to get painted still, but I got some of it painted. And we've got our gas pedal. We've got our brake and clutch pedals. These are identical. I drilled them out, and those will get painted probably chrome. And I just dropped my key. Oh crap. So yeah, get that back in there, and I'll find the key off camera. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about this. Definitely try scratch building. It can be very rewarding, very challenging. I like challenging things. If you like the simple way of life and everything, box build, just, you know, stock right out of the kit. But I urge everybody to try to do some scratch building. Find a car you really like. Research and see what parts are made aftermarket. What you could buy 3D to, you know, make up the difference. Oh, there's one of my knobs. See, you look around long enough, you find stuff. And try it, because you'll never know until you do it if you're good at it. And you're going to fail. I failed, and I still fail. So it's not a matter of that. It's just I've got enough determination that I go until I achieve what I'm wanting to get. And I urge you to try it. My email is always down below. Send me pictures. Send me an email. Ask me questions. I'll be glad to help you however I can. I'm never turning anybody down from helping. It's my way to, pay it forward. And watch a lot of videos. You'll see other guys that scratch build stuff to replicate what's not in the kit, and you want that touch of realism in there, you're going to have to scratch build. Or find somebody that makes it aftermarket or makes it 3D printed or whatever, and go that route. But it can be done. I mean, look at some of these builds these guys do that are way better than me. The amount of detail and realism that's in these things, it blows my mind. And I'm like, how did they do that? I could never. And then I force myself to sit down and do stuff like this. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can do it. Now, it looks a hot mess right now because you see pencil marks and you see, just a little bit of shiny glue. But once it's all primered, you're not going to, the details going to stand out then. And then I can start getting in there and getting it all painted, and it'll be just right. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. We'll have a video out next week, hopefully, and we'll touch base on this. There'll be another video coming out. I don't know when, whether it's the end of this week or into next week, on the tribute build I'm doing for Jay. It's that 75 Cutlass. It's a Johan kit. We did quite a bit of modifications, not extreme, but we did some. And I've showed you the tires and wheels, the starting of them. We did change our mind, and we're not using the Zimmerman. We're using the Z-Force. So we'll touch base on that when we do the video for that. But thank you again, guys. Stay warm. It is bitter cold here. I try not to go outside as much as possible. I went to the doctor yesterday, and I kicked snow on my sidewalk and threw my back out. That's what happens when you get old. It's awesome. Something to look forward to. It's great. I love it. Yay. We'll see you next week, guys. This is Rusty Rotor. I'm out.